if someone's done something to you and you don't want to let it go, this episode is for you. Maybe someone betrayed you, your parent, a partner, a close friend. Maybe they lied to you, abandoned you. They hurt you in a way that feels unforgivable. And now you're stuck carrying it all, the weight, the rage, the injustice. And truthfully, you don't want to forgive them. Not if it means letting them off the hook. But here's what nobody told you. What you've been told about forgiveness, it might be a lie. And you probably heard, just let it go or forgive and forget. But when the pain is real and the betrayal is deep, that kind of advice feels like an insult. In this episode of the Robert Jean Experience, Robert and I are getting into the truth about forgiveness, what it really is, what it isn't, and why holding on to forgiveness keeps you trapped, but not them. So Robert Jean is the founder of Skills to Change Institute, the creator of eutaptics and FasterEFT. He teaches what I believe is the most powerful method of real lasting change and ultimate forgiveness. So let's dive right in.
This is a big topic. I'm telling you, every problem that you can imagine, every one of them, all related to the inability to let go
Yes.
and the fear of letting go as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to bring this into the conversation of of forgiveness. I don't even know how to say this. I want to talk about forgiveness universally because people have different perspectives of what forgiveness is. So
Mhm.
we have the Christian group and what they believe about what forgiveness is. And there's different Christian groups with different beliefs about what it is. And then we have the metaphysical group, the group of, the energy healers, and they have their own belief about what forgiveness is. And so we
Mhm.
have different religions, denominations, and they all have a perspective about what forgiveness is. And so I want to look at some of the misconceptions about what forgiveness is first before you
Okay.
go in and talk about what ultimate forgiveness is, like the truth about unforgiveness.
Real forgiveness.
Yes. And so let's start with my background is Christian, your background is Christian. And so there's many scriptures where Jesus is speaking about what forgiveness is. And there's a lot of scriptures that even sound like force or its moral obligation to forgive. For
Mhm.
example, when Jesus said, forgive not 7 times, but 70 times, 7 times. So
Mhm.
people that are raised in Christian homes, they might look at this forgiveness as in, forgive no matter what. You need to forgive. That is your moral obligation. And even if that person might be still hurting you. So I want to know what is really happening inside of someone's limbic system, in their nervous system, in their brain, when someone tries to follow that kind of teaching. What is happening?
Well, I mean, if you look at it in a really smart way, there's different levels or layers of looking at things. One, we have consciousness, what our world thinks, and we consciously will look at it and operate from our logical understanding. Logical understanding will never solve your emotional issues. That's why talk therapy or insight therapy, you go for 30 years, you logically know every reason why they did what they did to you and why you're messed up, but you're still messed up.
Yeah.
So, logically, you say, I'm going to forgive whoever. And that's oftentimes lip service, say, I want to forgive you. I'd like to forgive you. And they're going to try to mentally or willfully forgive.
Mhm.
Well, that's a big problem because it doesn't change what drives unforgiveness.
Right. Yes.
And so knowing what that driving force is, now the problem is most, if not all of these modalities that are talking about do not know how to change the real cause of unforgiveness.
Mm. So then they've got forgiveness. So it's really not the definition of what forgiveness is in the first place.
Well, if I were to give the word or like a definition or a description of what is forgiveness, do you want me to give you that? My definition or
Yeah,
understanding?
not yet.
Okay, because it's really right on spot.
I know. Yours is so good, and it is once you hear it, you just know it on the deepest level of your being that
Yeah.
this is truth, and you know
Yeah.
it because it works and it's
Oh
working
yeah.
in your present moment. But I
Oh
want to
yeah.
look at how at the different perspectives because there are so many misconceptions and what people really believe, what people
Mhm.
are believing about it.
Mhm.
And so I want to stay with the Christian perspective. So, what you're saying, first of all, with what's happening when someone tries to follow that kind of teaching, they're just giving lip service, but they're not really
Yeah.
changing what is.
Yeah. And the dangers of this, and most people know this. Say you're going to forgive your mother for how she treated you and what you did. So you're going to do this because your church says it, or your priest says it, or the energy people say it, or your dog tells you to forgive, right? All
Mhm.
right. So the problem is lip service or willful service, trying to do that, there's a problem and a danger with it. Say, for example, you're going to forgive whoever it is that you need to forgive for being so mean to you. So you're going to go in with this forgiveness in your mind, in your idea, and you're going to go and hang around whoever it is that you want to forgive. But the problem is they do it again and the wound gets deeper.
Right.
And then you get to the point you say, screw forgiveness, you know,
Yes.
and they're going to hold on to this unforgiveness memory and references and proofs that keep you locked in a loop that keeps you miserable and in pain.
Hmm.
So the
Right.
best way for you probably is for your form of forgiveness is I'll never see you again and I'll never mention your name and I'm going to change my name and move to a different country.
Yes.
But the biggest problem with that is that the deepest part about you, the biggest problem is that you're going to take that education with you. And I call that education is like a bucket of dung. You got your paintbrush and you're going to start painting the world to match what you already believed and see to be true. That means you're going to still see it, experience everywhere you go, if only within the self.
Mm, right. You don't want to carry that around for long.
People do all the time.
Yes, all the time. And can we talk about the one scripture because we're on the Christian perspective right now where it says
Okay.
that if you don't forgive others, your Father in heaven won't forgive you your sin.
Well, let's just look at it logically and practically. Now, there's a lot to that. There's a lot of misunderstanding with the teachings of Jesus. There is a lot, and that's because that system is not created in a vacuum. It has a cultural understandings. There are things that we don't have that's in the book that was available then. There's mistranslation and misinterpretations of all of it. So for me, if you look at it from practicality and the real reason what Jesus was teaching, I believe personally, just by his readings, and it, again, the book shifted for me when I started studying how the brain works and the mechanics of the mind. And when I say that, we're talking about neurolinguistic programming, which is basically internal mechanics. That's all it is. What are you doing inside yourself? How are you processing, and how our minds manifest and produce. So after I read that, I went back and read the book. Now, again, when we talk about the book and Jesus, we're talking about the words in red, just in case some of you don't know. All right. Now, most of the New Testament is Paul's work, which never met Jesus, never knew he knew who he was, but never saw him. And so there's two worlds here, Jesus teachings and Paul teachings. Modern day churches are based on the teachings of Paul, not Jesus.
Mhm.
All right. So let's push that out of the way, but we're going to go to the processing of the world in which Jesus taught. Now he said, forgive your brother. He said 7 times 70. But again, what is forgiveness? And he does teach and tell how to do that mechanically as well. All right. So again, when you think about it, and there's a big ball of wax here. So he says, judge not, you be not judged. For the same measure you're judged, you're being judged. Or so what's that saying? When you judge and condemn somebody else, when you hate and despise someone else, that's already inside you. And that's what your curse is.
Yes.
So you say, if you won't forgive someone else, how do you think anyone else going to forgive you? Because you have all unforgiveness within you. Even if you are forgiven, you're still unforgiven within yourself.
That's right. And it's that goes back to that scripture about that speck in your eye. If you notice the speck in your
Yeah.
brother's eye, it's because there's a big log in yours.
Yeah. Now remember, guys, now my system is not a Christian system, but we are dealing with, and I raised up Christian. I'm not a Christian. I used to be, but now I'm just a follower of truth, which is what Jesus taught, right? All
Sure.
right. So big difference. So when we talk about this, again, there are some really powerful concepts and understandings about forgiveness. But what is the truth, the real deal, and what he taught? And it's the same thing that I teach as well. It's just I'm more modernized.
hmm hmm So then let's go back to the scripture that I originally talked about. Like, if you do not forgive,
Mhm.
and your father won't forgive you
Mhm.
your transgressions, your sins.
Yeah. But I really be honest with you, the Father in heaven doesn't really care. He doesn't. He doesn't hold it against you. There's only one person who holds it against you, and that's you.
Yes.
Because see, I dated someone one time and I really loved her. And guess what? She didn't feel like I loved her. I really loved her
Mhm.
because inside of her is not being loved.
Right.
No matter how much their mom loves them, no matter how much someone cares about them, if inside them there is not being loved, they're not loved.
Mhm.
So if they hold unforgiveness inside them, they see God as an unforgiving God.
There we go.
Right?
Exactly.
Again, it's an angle of thinking in which people process.
Yes. Yes. And when people read scriptures, they've taken it literally. And I mean, not everybody has taken it literally, but
Mhm.
there are some people that have chopped off their hands. They have plucked out their eyes because of scripture, taking it literally.
Mhm.
So we know there is some of that. But so most of scripture being it has been it's parables. It's
Yeah, yeah,
typology
yeah,
within it.
yeah, yeah. Again, unfortunately, I mean, our culture is very much like the Aramaic in which Jesus spoke back then, which is full of idioms. You know, one of the idioms, growing up in high school, they'd write, "Robert, you're such a fox." Now, again, you don't hear that today, do you?
No,
I
no.
mean, that's an idiom that went way back a long time ago.
hmm
Idioms shift and change over time. So uh, the language in which they spoke is very idiomatic. That means the words have different meanings. Like I was in Ireland and one of the guys said, "My sister or my wife is not behind the door." I go, "Well, where is she?" He goes, "No, no, no. That means she's not shy." So for me, I didn't know that idiom. She's not
Right.
behind the door. She's in front of the door, which means she's not shy. But I didn't get that idiom because I had no idea about it. So then I could give a total different meaning.
Yeah.
She's behind the door. She's not behind the door, which means, well, some people in Ireland hide behind the door, you know?
Mhm.
But, and like when somebody 100 years from now, they read about, wow, she's such a hot chick, they're going to say, was that a chicken with a
Bird
fever
and
or
chicken.
something, you know? So idioms shift and change. And unfortunately, that is an old language and it was translated in 1600 by a Roman ruler. Oh,
Mhm.
it's not Roman ruler, but by a king who translated the Greek version and the Latin version into what we call the modern day Bible. But it's just there's a lot of mistranslation understanding. So for me to understand the time of Jesus, you have to know the culture of the time. You have to know the idioms. I remember one time my wife and I were going to different churches and we walked in a church and they tried to kiss you on the lips. And I said, that guy, I'm not kissing no guy on the lips. But again, they're going to a biblical scripture says, meet your brethren with a holy kiss.
Oh wow.
And
There
because
you go.
they're taking it out of a vacuum and then they're creating it with today's modern thinking.
hmm That's
So again, There's a lot of weirdness to this, but if I know you don't want me to go back into the details of how the brain works and what Jesus is actually talking about, but I do understand it.
Yes, you do. Yeah.
Real mechanics.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that shows us even how misconceptions are born
Oh
because
yeah. Right.
times change, but history is repeating itself. We know that
Yeah.
as well. And so,
Well, I mean, the thing of the Chinese whisper, where you get in a circle, you whisper a story. By the time it comes back to you, it's a total different story,
yeah,
and that's because of misunderstanding, not knowing the context and the structure and the culture of which it was spoken.
hmm that's right. Yeah, yeah. And then let's look now. We're kind of going to take a right turn here. Let's look at Eckhart Tolle for those people that listen to him, love reading his books, and watch him. So Eckhart Tolle has the belief system that forgiveness is to overlook. It's not to forgive. You are overlooking. When you overlook, you realize that there's nothing to forgive because nothing has been threatened. So, and I know this is going to be hard for some people to hear that. So he's saying that true forgiveness happens when we're no longer holding on to the story of being a victim because the ego likes to hold on to the
Hmm.
stories, be a victim. And so his solution is all about shifting into the present moment, into the now. And
Right. Right.
where he does align with you, Robert, is where the past doesn't exist except in our minds.
Yeah.
But his solution is shift into the present moment.
hmm
What is
hmm
your take on this?
Well, I mean, there's some truths and some semi-truths. First of all, everybody knows a past is over; it doesn't exist. But my ability to speak English or to be able to write my name or to walk across the floor is because of my brain's learnings. So I know how to do these things without thinking because there's a database built within the self. All
Mhm.
right. Now, unfortunately, Eckhart Tolle got this ego wrong, and a lot of people get it wrong too. He did say the truth, what ego was in his book. He said the ego is just merely programs and programming.
Mhm.
But later on, he created what you call a straw man called the ego. Now, if you don't know what a straw man is, it's just clothes with straw on it on a stick that looks like a real person, but it can't fight back. Right? So he created the ego, the straw man, which he's blaming the ego for our problems.
Right.
And so the problem with ego, and some will say edging God out, that's all horse nonsense. I would say horse shit, but so what is the ego? Since he said, and this is the truth,
Yeah.
your ego is an accumulation of memories and experiences in which you operate from. Now, if I'm a religious group or some a controlling group, I don't want you to have an ego. I want to beat your ego down to where I can control you and manipulate you. Don't think so highly of yourself.
Right.
But the ego is the one that says brush your teeth because you want to keep them. The ego says drive on the right side of the road and stop at all stoplights.
Mhm.
All right, the ego is a survival system. Now the problem is that you've had a pretty crappy life and had some bad experiences. Well, those are just programs and programming, and your brain will operate from that. And so, there's the program called narcissism. Of course, narcissism, and my definition of narcissism is it's all about me, it's what I want, and I think you should do it my way. That's why you personally, and that's everyone of you listening, you look at your parents and said they didn't love me the right way based on your egotistical, narcissistic point of view.
Mhm.
Everyone uses and has narcissistic tendencies, which basically means I see the world my way. My way's the right way. Come join my fantasy. You know?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And so when we look at this, um, Eckhart Tolle created the straw man, and the straw man called the ego. The ego is not a bad thing. The ego is a very wise operating system. But the bad thing about the ego or the operating system is that you've had experiences that aren't great, and
Mhm.
you have experiences that are good. Your ego will use both. It'll be nice to people because that's what you're supposed to do. It'll do nice things. That's what the ego will do. So it's all based on program and programming. So now we back up and it's going to say, well, right now is real. That's true. But your brain has distortions of the past, memories and references that are good and that are bad. The bad one creates havoc in our consciousness, in
Mhm.
our world. So, yeah, it'd be nice to say, okay, I'm really here, even though I feel like I want to kill you because of what you said. You know, even though I want to run and hide, I feel like a loser because of you.
Right,
It
right.
is because of our inner translators.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is he really doing that then? Is he really able to stay in the present moment? I feel like you have to be some
It'd be
kind
nice. I
of
mean,
master.
granted, being in the present moment is a nice thing to do if you're able. The problem is the moment is distorted by the internalizations of the world. Your present moment may be a total distortion to the person sitting next to you
Wow.
because of our translations of the world.
Right. Right. So that is not a solution. It is not a solution.
Well, I mean, it could definitely help you try to stay out of the craziness, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah, I could see that part. Hmm.
Yeah.
So
I
what
mean, yeah.
Yeah. So what is ultimate forgiveness? What do you actually mean when you say forgiveness?
Ultimate forgiveness. Well, let me just back up. I'm going to get to ultimate forgiveness.
Okay,
If
sure.
I can easily give you a simple definition, but I'm going to look back. Let's go back to the teachings of Jesus for the real ones, not the religious ones.
Okay.
And he talks about the mind. And of course, whenever I started this stuff, I started studying the Bible at 15 because the church people didn't know what the hell they were doing because it didn't work for me. So I want to figure out why didn't it work? What's missing? And
Right.
that's when I started. My grandmother bought me a concordance. I started doing a Bible study, and come to find out, the teachings of Jesus was the teachings of learning to be a student and a pupil of life and the world and of your own mind. So learn to be in control of your internal processing of the world. Jesus never ever used the word sin, sin, never used it. It's a translated word from the arteries, which means you missed the mark. But what Jesus literally said is you missed what you're missing your highest potential. You're not doing what you need to do to be right. You made a mistake. Basically, that's what it means. Now, sin today has a different meaning, and it's a really great meaning if you want to control and manipulate people. You got a dark mark on your soul, and you
Mm.
need us to save you. Now, that's not his teachings. That's not Jesus. So he said you made a mistake. He goes on to say, and he teaches about mental processing. And if you look at the Beatitudes and you look at all these different things, and he says, I have not come to destroy the law, but I'm to perfect the law and to satisfy the law. And he tells us as students of the truth to obey the laws. Now, what he did is he taught. He says, if you look at a woman and you lust for a woman, but he said, if you do it in your mind, if what you do in your mind makes you sin, makes you cause and do something stupid.
Missed the mark.
He says, stop fantasizing about women and having sex with them or men. Depends on who it is, right?
Hmm.
He internalizes, says, what are you doing inside your head?
Hmm.
How do you process this?
Right.
All right. So, and he goes on to say, if your eyes cause you to stumble, pluck it out. Now, you and I logically know
Hmm.
you can be completely blind and think evil, bad thoughts.
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
not the eyeball. So he is saying what you see inside you and outside you causes you problems. Pluck it out. Now, what does that mean? Pluck it out. He says, change it, adjust it, get rid of it.
Right. And we know now too that we're not seeing with our eyes, we see with our brain.
We see within our head.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So he's talking about, you know, what you do inside you. And, of course, in our world, scientifically proven, stress and emotions are the leading cause of all health problems, relationship problems, death, murders, everything, illnesses, stress, and emotional complaints. But you look in the Bible, there's no word such called stress in this concordance. It didn't exist. So he calls it lust of the flesh, or he calls it sin. And
Hmm.
so again, it becomes a different model of the world when you look at it from the logical, practical point of view. So he says, if you're angry, anger is inside you, pluck it out, change it, and adjust it. So and he says, how many times should I forgive somebody? He said 7 times 70. That means you always forgive. Now, what is forgiveness about? Not them.
Right.
You and I both have had people who hurt us, harmed us,
Hmm.
caused us problems. And people who are listening to this, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
They have made such an emotional impact on our life, and it became a programming of hurt, pain, shame, etc. But that is in you. Like if you had, if you had a brother, I work with so many different people from all across, the world and different modalities and thinking processes, and one of the AA's step 4 was to go and ask forgiveness from everyone that you ever did harm to. So here it is. You go to Uncle Joe, or your brother says, "Hey, I forgive you for being a jerk and for me punching you in the face." You go, "I don't know what you're talking about. I don't remember you ever punching me in the face." Right?
Right. Yeah.
Or they get, because again, who's having the problem? You or them?
Yeah.
It's you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, if you go to Uncle Joe or whoever it is, you punch in the face and said, "I'm sorry for punching in the face." I said, "I hope you die a miserable death. I hate you." Now, what the hell are you going to do?
Hmm.
So again, it's all about what you do inside. So
Yeah.
forgiveness is about you, not them. Now let's kind of pause here for a second. What is trauma? Now, by the way, every event in our life, positive and negative, or I'm going to call it trauma. A trauma is an education on how to survive and operate within the world that affects your identity and affects how you operate with others and what you need to do to stay alive. That's all trauma is. It's good, bad, and the ugly, right? So when we look at this, this is a traumatic or programming or training on how to do something. So you've had somebody abuse you, hurt you, harm you. Where's it at? In you.
In me. Hmm.
They could be dead and gone, and who's still suffering? You.
Hmm.
All
That's
right.
right.
So if they're dead and gone, how are you going to forgive somebody? You want to call them up on a psychic hotline and say, "Hey, can I talk to Uncle Joe?" You know?
Yes. Well, I've seen that done. Yes.
Yeah. But again, forgiveness is not about what they did.
Hmm.
Forgiveness and trauma is about what your brain grabbed a hold of, internalize it, and use it to operate in value.
Hmm.
So my ultimate forgiveness is super simple. It's not easy to do because you got to know how to do it. Ultimate forgiveness is going inside you, and all the memories and references you hold within, you change them to where it's positive.
Hmm.
And you become free, and you don't need to go to them to say, "I forgive you," because forgiveness is within. See, your torments are you.
Hmm.
I mean, like I said, Uncle Joe could be dead 1,000 years ago. Who's
Hmm.
tormenting you with the stories? You. So
Hmm.
true forgiveness is not going to say, "Hey, I forgive you." True forgiveness is changing everything inside you hold against them, which is really about who? You. So truly forgiveness. Now, now here's a big scary part about it. If I forgive them,
Hmm.
they're going to hurt me. They're going to get me again.
Right. There we go. And that's one
And
of the reasons to hold on to it.
yeah, and the bad thing is you never get free from it because you'll always be hurt and abused because you hold it within.
Hmm.
So that's why they said, well, they say, well, if I forgive them, they'll hurt me again. I said, they're already hurting you now, and they're dead. By the way, they're hurting you now inside you because it's you.
It's you. And that's where people have a difficult time understanding that concept, even to accept that person inside of them, because they're so connected to what happened to them that it's
Yeah.
hard to distinguish that. So what do you say to someone? It's like you want to like shake
It's,
them for them to understand it, but what do you
yeah.
say?
Well, I mean, here's the deal. Now, some of you guys are listening to me, and you're going to your memories, and you feel like it's real and true. We go into what I would call a hypnotic state or trance of a bad experience. That means we feel like it's real now, even though it was 7 years old and you're now 47, right? 40 years later, you're still feeling it as if it was real today.
Mhm.
Right. So reason why it's hard is because your brain makes it feel real today. It feels real in your body and it's reality. Even though with logic, it happened 40 years ago, it's not true. but I experience it. And here's the crazy thing, since it's in you, you get to do it again.
Hmm.
And you repeat the cycle in many styles and ways. It's an endless loop of miserableness, even though you say you want to be free from it. But if you're not willing to do the work, you're stuck in a cycle of misery. It's like the blind lead the blind, they both fall in the ditch.
Right.
You
Yes.
know,
Hmm.
they don't know what they're doing. They say they want something better, but when it gets close to doing something better and going to the dark spots inside of them, the memories and references
Hmm.
they
That's
carry. And
key.
if you choose not to address it, what I say is you're choosing to just say, I like this, I love it, give me some more of it. That's all I say.
That's right.
Because you're not willing to set yourself free from a program.
Right. Yes. Because that program feels so real, as
Yeah,
if,
it's a culture. It's a family.
right.
I mean, your mom and dad's pissed off. Your friends and your brothers are pissed off. Matter of fact, you'll mate and marry someone who's pissed off.
Hmm.
You repeat a cycle that is familiar.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And how about the person that needs the other person to suffer?
Well, again, the suffering is in the self of the person. They want to get even with somebody, and
Yeah.
they say, there's a saying that says, if you seek revenge, dig two graves, one for you and one for them, because you're both going to hell.
There we go.
You know,
Yes, absolutely. So it's not worth holding on to what our brain has captured. It's just a program, but
it's
to
it's
recognize
it's
that.
and unhealthy. I have a lot of people, and this is the most bizarre thing too. Um, like for example, I use Deirdre as an example. She loved her mother, but couldn't stand her. I really couldn't stand her at all. Did not like her. She'd go be around her, but she just doesn't like her mother.
Hmm.
And I said, Deirdre, you need to make peace with your mother. She goes, what do you mean make peace? I said, you need to start addressing those memories of the things you hold against her. So I said, well, you do, and how you do this, you write a list of all the bad memories and you go and update them and change them where they're not bad anymore. And she goes, at one time, she goes, oh my God, my mother's completely changed. And she hadn't had any sessions. I said, it's not that your mother changed, is that you removed the dirty glasses you were looking through. You distorted your mother's behavior based on your internal references.
Hmm.
And I see this all the time. And not only that, I will say this. There was a woman who called me, and these are standard stories I know because they're true stories. She calls me, she says, I need to know what to do with my husband. I say, is he alive or dead? She goes, he's alive. She said, I've been married for 40 years. He's an alcoholic, and I don't know what to do with him. I guess you want me to tell him to divorce him or something. I said, well, I tell you how I do that. I say, why don't you write a list of everything wrong with him, everything did wrong, every bad thing you could ever imagine, and have him do the same, but do not share the list between each other, okay? Because there'll be a fight, right? They're going to blame each other.
I can imagine.
And
Yeah.
so she comes to the session, and I spent 2 hours cleaning up her memories and adjusting all this stuff. At the end of the session, she goes, I still don't know what to do with him. I feel like I wasted my 2 hours. I said, I know. I'm getting ready to see your husband, and then next week, I'll work. We'll work and see what else we can do here. And so she leaves. I go out to get him. He's not there. 30 minutes later, he's still not there. So I took a nap. The following week, she shows up, and the first thing she said, "Oh my God, he completely changed." Now I didn't see him.
Right.
What
Wow.
changed? Well, first of all, her attitude shifted.
Hmm.
And not only the attitude, and I'll be honest with you. Now, I don't know if you have a dog, but if every time you come home, you kick the dog when you walk in the door,
Oh
the
gosh.
dog is not going to be there when you walk into the door. He's going to be at the bar drinking beer with his buddies.
Yeah.
And so what happened is her perception and attitude shifted towards him. That means the gun is down, and then it opens up for a better relationship because we have what you call an angst or an issue with somebody, and our attitude reflects that. Now, we don't think it's wrong. We just think it's normal because of our training and programs.
Right. Yes.
So by merely shifting that, it shifts the relationship. Now, it could for some and maybe not for others,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know? So, but I've seen this not once. I experienced it in my life. I see others do it all the time because we distort the world based
Mhm.
on our inner programmings and our past. I've recently had a really, really bizarre experience with somebody, and it created distrust in a lot in my life because here it is, you trust somebody completely, and they totally lie, betray, and try to harm you. And then introduce a world to me, and I go, oh my God. I mean, who else is like that? So it introduced a world that I didn't see. I didn't know. So
Hmm.
again, it affects how we view things. These are traumas and these are emotional educations.
Yeah, yeah.
So the key for you and the key for me, ultimate forgiveness is making peace with our history. I say if you want a better relationships, change your parents in your head. Change your bad experiences in your head. And you know, and I think there was another thing you talked about was Buddhism. Did you say talk about the Buddhism model of thinking? Didn't you say something like that?
Like the Course in Miracles, I talked about.
Maybe it's a Course in Miracles. I don't know what it was you're talking about.
Yes, yeah, right. Okay, so her name is Mary Shookman or Shookman, and she's a clinical psychologist who channeled Jesus. And one of her, so her definition of forgiveness is the recognition that what you thought your brother did to you has not occurred. In other words, what you see as sin or a transgression is just a misunderstanding of reality.
That's kind of sort of right. But how do you get to that point? All right.
Right. And so
Yeah.
what the idea of what she was channeling was this information that restores our awareness back to innocence. So it's bringing you constantly back to the awareness of innocence, of pure love, that there's only love, there's no fear.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let me explain what love is too. Most people have a really distorted understanding what love. All right. First of all, um, uh, so I watched a guy on YouTube. He wrote the Course of Miracle. No, not Course of Miracle. He wrote the Conversations with God, 3 books.
Yeah.
And he said something like this: the opposite of love is fear.
Mhm.
Right? And some people say the opposite of love is hate. And of course, and I ask myself, because I know the truth, if you have a fear of spiders, what is that fear trying to do for you?
Protect you.
Protect you. Is there love behind protection?
Hmm.
Yeah. Or what if it's hate? What if you hate people with blue eyes? First of all, why would you hate people with blue eyes?
Well, I would have had an experience.
What- There's someone who hurt you and harmed you, right? So therefore you hate.
Yeah.
Right? So is that a form of protection?
Yes. Yes, it's
Yes.
protection.
Right? So hate is love, fear is love, trying to keep you safe, trying to protect you.
Mm.
So the truth is, and another thing too is if you hate something inside you or hate something outside of you, that's trying to keep you safe and protect you. But it is what I would call not the greatest vibration of love, but to understanding what is love then. Love, it has another word. It's a synonym to this other word, which is true.
Mhm.
It is called survival. So to hate something, you want to survive and stay safe. To,
Mhm.
to get mushy and gooey feelings and feel love from somebody else is also a form of safety and security. So love is survival. So if you hate something, that's a form of survival. It's not hatred. It's not like something bad, but you're trying to be safe based on an internal operating memory and system.
Mhm.
So to hate somebody is a form of love. It's not what you call the best vibration of love, but the reason why you hate it is you don't want to get harmed. As a matter of fact, you hate it so much, you'll get people join you to join this hate group. But the
Right.
problem is this hate also deteriorates.
Mhm.
And
Exactly.
so that's the biggest problem. It also keeps you in the fight or flight system. It keeps you thinking the world is bad and it's a survival though. It is survival, which
Right.
is a form of love. But we want to evolve from this love and let go of the hurt and pain, let go of the judgments. Like I have people who had a fear of spiders. Maybe 10 minutes later, 20 minutes later, they can hold a real spider in their hand and have no fear whatsoever.
Mhm. And that's ultimate forgiveness with the spider.
Exactly. Ultimate forgiveness sets you free from the internalization and distortions we hold within ourselves.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it works with our whole world, our whole experience, all our
Hmm.
perceptional filters, like everything that we're experiencing on the inside of us.
Yeah. It's all internalizations. It's how we internalize and see the world. So ultimate forgiveness is making peace with your head. What's
Yeah.
inside your head? Now, I always say that our brain, our minds are like temples. Whatever you hold in your mind is what you're going to get. They become your idols and your gods, right? So if you have a lot of anger memories, by the way, the anger memories trying to keep you safe, you're going to create anger in your life. You're going to spread it like the gospel, like the seeds everywhere you go. I mean, it is. And you want people to join you with this hatred group, right?
Right. Yeah.
But it's not the best seeds to plant.
Exactly. And that's what Jesus called a party spirit, because people would create all these parties and they would, that's where they would talk about, forming these groups against
Oh,
something
yeah.
and
Yeah.
resistance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hate groups. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So really, so forgiveness, true deep forgiveness is really knowing the self. Of course, all the sages and spiritual teachers, they say, know thyself, like what the hell does that mean?
Mhm.
Look at your driver's license, Robert Gene Smith, right? Or your birth certificate, Robert Gene Smith. That's not knowing yourself. But what they're really saying is knowing what you do within
Mhm.
and be the artist to adjust what you hold within. That means you're the mental, emotional janitor of your own mind.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, of course, the one lady goes, or one guy goes, what happens when you go in your mind and you go into the dungeon and you have all the cells of all the bad things that happen to you? What do you do? I said, set the captives free.
Mm.
Make peace with everything inside thee. And
That's
when you
right.
do, you actually have friends. It says, Jesus who said, make friends with your enemies. If you
Right.
have no enemies, you just got friends. The enemy was within yourself. It's the judgments against others. Now we're not stupid. We know that there are people who have bad problems.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
you don't have to take them home with you and sleep with them in your mind and toss and turn every night.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's my next question is when people have hurt you so badly, and let's say they haven't worked on themselves at all, you still have the awareness they're the same person because
Mm,
maybe you co-parent with them. Okay. So you have to see this person, you have to work with this person to parent these children. And what if they're still covertly like abusing you and there's still things happening? Like this is real
mm.
life. There's
Yeah.
many
Right.
families that have to
Right.
work with it. So what do you
Well, part one is address your responses to them. Part two, address what you think they feel and do. Secondly, as you start clean up your emotions, your reactions, you'll be able to stand up in a way that will help direct them in a different way. Or you'll just learn how to not personalize it.
Oh, that's good. Okay, so how would someone change their responses? Can you give me an example?
Well, you address the memories and emotions you have about what's happening, what they said, what they did, how did it
Okay.
affect you. And by the way, how you see them oftentimes is a reflection of how you've had a relationship with your mom, your dad, or your brother, your sister. So you're distorting. And by the way, you pick this person out of the crowd. I mean, you got the puppy that looks just like your daddy, or
Right.
your mama. You think it's new, but it's the same nonsense that you know how to feel.
Yes, yes. So that leads to ultimate responsibility.
Well, yeah. I mean, it is really about, I mean, but I mean, there's so many people I've talked to who went to ayahuasca 12 times and still got their shit, or they
Absolutely.
spent, you
Yeah.
know, 3 years in an ashram, or they did all kinds of different things trying to make peace with their head, but they're going to people who don't know how to change the cause, which is memory,
Right.
direct change of the memories.
That's true.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Right
yeah,
there. That is very true. I've
yeah,
seen it over and over again. They've tried
yeah,
many modalities, even your students. I've been here, I've done that, and
yeah.
finally,
Yeah,
I know how to.
but but I will say this: all the stuff we're talking about, and you got stuff inside your head. The last thing you want to do is go there. You don't want to go there, and so
Yes,
you're gonna be chasing rainbows and rabbits and catch nothing.
yes, I know. And I already know that's my coping mechanism. I love the dimensions and just taking off to a different dimension. It's fun.
Yeah, but it's just a fantasy land. I mean, it's no difference than a paranoid schizophrenic. They go into some fantasy,
Yeah.
and it is an escape. It's like Facebooking. It's
Mhm.
like reading a book. It's like drinking a bottle of Jack Daniels. It's like cleaning the house. You're a temporary escape from your real reality, but you do have to come back, and
Yes.
reality knocks on the door.
So what it was that you said there was two things that if you were to speak to someone who was hurting, they were still dealing with an abusive person, you said there's two things. You said change your responses, and then you said something else. What was that?
Change your responses, change how you internalize it. I don't remember what I said, to be honest with you.
Okay. Yeah, I think that was you how you internalize it. So really it's
Mhm.
doing the work yourself, and then
Inside.
you'll respond differently to them.
Hmm.
You'll build a different
Hmm.
relationship.
Hmm.
You'll get the confidence you need
Right.
to work with this person. Because I mean, if you have kids, you still have to work with them.
Yeah, you got to make peace with what's going on. And again, and sometimes you're persistently not holding grudges and forgiving and being strong and being and standing for truth. You still have to stand up for truth
Hmm.
and continue doing so, things will get better for you, you know.
Hmm. Right. Yeah. All right. Do we want to go longer? Because we didn't even
Yeah,
get
yeah,
half.
we can. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. So let's go and I think I want to talk about the people that are in the religious households again, because there's a lot of the misconceptions. These are the misconceptions that I'm very aware of is shutting down, swallowing the pain. You know, you might be sweeping things under the carpet. I know
Hmm.
exactly how to do that because I've been in the church system. I've watched the ladies do
Hmm.
this. I know exactly how I
Hmm.
know how to do it. I could be a professional at sweeping it under the
Yeah,
rug. And
yeah,
so pretend that everything is fine, even though it's not fine. And so,
right.
what does that kind of conditioning, what does that do to someone who is taught to live that way, to bury
Hmm.
the pain? Because,
Hmm.
and it's in the name of like being a spiritual person or being the good person.
Right, right.
So,
But it's a very typical model. I want to say of narcissism as well. We all have narcissistic tactics. Remember, you look at a narcissist who's extremely all about themselves. You look behind their eye in their history, they were severely abused. And so what they do is they create an alternative personality that's the strong, tough one instead of the weak, abused one. So now, what's the difference in what you're doing? You have the abuse. You're going to put on your spiritual look. You're going to go into your fantasy world. You're going to your religious world, and you want to stay there. But the problem is the other is inside too. And then when you go home, the door is shut. You go back to your old self. And it's like I get a lot of people who are coming to me to heal their bodies, severe illnesses from lupus, Hashimoto's, fibromyalgia, Lyme disease, multiple chemical sensitivities. And they're going to go to DNRS, they're going to go to Gupta, they're going to go to Joe Dispenza, they're going to go do the ayahuasca 12 times and walk on the fire, walk on the stones of fire with Anthony Robbins. But they will tell me it's still in there.
mhm,
It's still in there, and I know it's waiting to come out.
mhm.
And
Yeah,
so we go to what's in there and pluck it out.
yeah, that's right. Yeah. And how about those like I really want to speak to that because I so understand this programming. So I know there's people that will listen that are listening to this that are doing that. They're
Which
doing
which
that.
which that?
Like specifically they're being the spiritual person. They're sweeping
Hmm.
under the rug,
Yeah,
even though the
right.
pain is still there. In,
Yeah.
in our family, I don't want to say names, but I know that there was a situation that happened and no one talked about it except the one girl in this family was shamed. And with that shame, she carried it and she still carries it.
Yeah.
And that's the family dynamics. Now, there's this big elephant in the room that nobody is talking about,
Hmm.
but you can see it in their physical body because of
Yeah.
how she
Yeah.
wears it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. If she would go in there and clean all that up and let go of her guilt and shame, whatever happened, the um the 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 emotional dynamics will shift. Usually.
right.
Her anyway.
Yeah, right. And then, but okay, so let's talk about this because even though she works on herself, now does she have to go and address the family and the dynamics that took
Well,
place that happened to her within
well,
this?
again, what happened to her is inside of her.
Correct. That's so good.
So you think you have to go to them to fix it. That's not true. You have
Okay.
to fix it within first. Now, again, I have a process. There's like 6 different ways that we will use my process to address our problems. One of them we call pick a project. Now, again, the project will be your mother.
Mhm.
So you want to make peace with your mother within. And so what you're going to do is you're going to go to every bad memory of what you have within you about your mother and what she did, however she did, whatever she did to you, and you change all those references inside you, which means you're setting yourself free. You're plucking it out, change it, and readdressing it. Now, it doesn't really literally affect your mother, but it does affect you. So then we're going to clean it up. And then I will say, when you feel like you've done enough work on the inside of you where it doesn't bother you, call her up on the phone and then address whatever happens there. And you get it to the point, no matter what she says and what she does, it has no impact on you. Though I walk through the shadow of my in laws and my mother and my stories of my past, I have no fear because I am peaceful within the self.
Mm.
Because it's not what they do, it's not what they did, it's what we hold and we do within.
Wow.
Make peace within, and it sets you free.
Right.
Now, making peace, let me just make sure what people, when I say make peace, change the memories.
Yeah.
Change it to where it didn't happen, it's not happening. You know it did, but you have no proof and it's not real. Like you were born, you don't have any memories of it, but you know it's a fact. That's
Mhm.
how your past should be. I know it happened, but so what? I don't care. But
Right.
most people, when they go back, they know what happened and they feel it happening again and again every
Yes.
time they recall.
Yes.
That is the bad trance.
Yeah. Then you know it's still in there.
Yep.
And another
Yep.
way you still know it's in there is with the physical body. So what
Mhm.
happens when we don't, work on these memories, or what
Oh, yeah,
happens with the painful memories on the inside of us and then
exactly.
expressed in the physical body? Do you have?
Yeah. How many times I have people come to see me with really big physical illnesses?
Mhm.
Spoke with a woman just the other day. Um, she said, "Oh, I don't know what." She started having panic attacks and anxiety and depression. All right. So now she's been depressed for 20 years. I said, okay, let's go back 20 years ago. What was going on in your life? She goes, oh, nothing much. I just had a job I didn't like. I said, well, tell me more about your job you didn't like. Well, come to find out, everybody was mean to her. They picked on her. They bullied her. They tormented her. And it was hell, week, work world, right? And guess what her brain did? It created a new value of the world. It created that people are going to pick on me, and it's depressing. It weighs you down. It makes you scared. And now she has a trouble getting out of her bed in the morning, getting out of the bed, even taking a shower because she's still depressed from 20-year-old experience because it becomes a how-to. Now, I see a lot of people who come in who're sick, and it's all coming from emotional traumas
Mhm.
and physical too. Both, there's a mix. And we go and we change those physical traumas. We go change the emotional events that created this. Their body is free from pain.
Yeah.
I've seen it. I've done it a lot. You
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
Phil, he comes in. He had morphine patches to deal with the pain because of they went in through his groin and put stents in the back of his head about 10 years ago. And and of course he has nerve damage, has pain. He'll have nerve damage. The doctor says nerve damage the rest of your life. So he books a session, 2 hour session, and I go in and I start asking the right questions.
Hmm.
Well, what was going on 20 years ago? Oh, divorce. And then all the anger and hatred towards her and all the stuff that he had against himself. And then the anger towards the doctors and all this stuff. We changed that. Within that end of that 2 hour session, the pain in his groin was gone. He
Wow.
came back a month or two later with a stack of papers showing me, look, the doctor says I should have pain the rest of my life and it's gone.
Wow.
He said, where'd it go? I said, the doctor's got it now.
Oh, wow.
But
That.
this is true stories. And it's replicatable. I do it all the time.
Mhm. Yeah. So let's just sum things up now, because we now know what ultimate forgiveness really is. It has
Mm-hmm.
nothing to do with the other person.
Mm-mm.
And I just want to touch on this just to clarify. If something, if I do something to someone, I'm not necessarily going to that person to say, would you please forgive me? And then they're going to look at me like a deer with crossed eyes. Like, I have no idea what you're even talking about.
Right.
And meanwhile, I've been playing this in my mind and I've been shaming myself and blaming myself and living with it. So
Yep.
it's not necessarily going to another person. I'm
Mm-mm.
looking inside. I'm
Yeah.
looking how it's been imprinted onto me, and that's what I deal with.
Yes. You change it. Yes.
Right. And so if someone was to, because we're told to go and ask forgiveness, is that
Mhm.
really even forgiveness? If
Oh,
we're
you want to forgive them. I'm going to go forgive you. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's not even forgiveness, though. It's reconciliation. Forgiveness has everything to do with ourselves
Hmm.
and what
Hmm.
we're doing within our head, as you
Yeah.
said.
Yeah.
Yes. And so, any final words that you want to speak about?
Well, I think the most important thing, guys, and that's everyone, me as well, learn how to make peace with what's inside you. Make peace means change it, not ignore it, don't and not pretend like it's not there. Go to it, release and change and transform how it's internalized. And that's from the from birth onward. And you clean these up, you become a freer person. It's not what they did to you, but rather what you captured, hold within you, and use for you and against you. So even if you let go of what they did, it doesn't make you stupid. You won't let it happen again because there's a wisdom to it. But if you don't let it go, I guarantee you'll get to do it again and again, if only by yourself. So learn to be the master of your own heart, your own mind, and your own world. Because if you do, you become the light where people can say, wow, she's different. You're living a different life. You're manifesting, producing something different. Not that you're producing something bad, but it just doesn't feel good, you
Mhm.
know?
That's right.
So,
That's good. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. And thank you, listeners, for being here with us on another episode of the Robert Jean Experience.
love yourself, like yourself from within, because what you do up here, you do to other people. So just be nice with you first and share the niceness. Peace.
Peace.